With every presentation I will commence with the following. Ethics is not there to judge people, but to judge the actions of people, whether they are right or wrong. Ethics tells us what to do, what not to do, and what choices to make. We have to understand choices, actions, and motives. Motives drive choices and actions. And for every action there is always an equal and opposite reaction from those choices. Now if a motive justifies an action for one, then it justifies the same action for anyone employing that motive, or otherwise one would be inconsistent and incongruent with one's principle. Now we have to differentiate legal and ethical. These terms are not the same. What may be legal may not be necessarily ethical, and in some parts of the world, what may be ethical may not be legal. Now we have to distinguish relative ethics from absolute ethics. Relative ethics come from man, because these ethics change with place and location. All theories of ethics fall short from absolute ethics of nature, which are based in harmony and coherence. These natural laws can only be discovered and not be created. These ethics never change, with time and location. What is ethical in one place is ethical at all places, irrespective of location. And what is ethical at one point in time, is ethical at all points in time, irrespective of time difference. Now I do not discuss any topics based on these relative ethics of man. If I do fall under one of these following ethical codes in some instances, then it has been coincidental or that ethics is in agreement with the natural laws. Is it ethically correct to accept gifts from clients, customers, suppliers, or business partners if you are an employee of a business? What does ethics say about this issue? Let's start off by saying that any gifts given to an employee actually do not belong to the employee in the first place. Because the employee is being hired for their labor, and not for their time. So whatever work one performs for the company belongs to the company. If a work was performed for a client and the client was so thrilled about the service that he or she goes out of their way to give a special gift to the employee, then that actual gift does not belong to the employee, but belongs to the company who the employee works for. An employee accepting the gift and taking it home or using the gift amounts to a form of stealing from the employer. A company hires people for the labor, and anything done in accordance with that labor belongs to the employer. Unless the employer distinctly has stated in such areas as company policies, verbally or in writing to internal staff what certain things the employee is allowed to keep, which may include gifts. Then accepting a gift from a client, supplier or partner would be ethically correct if allowed by the company or business to do so. Now if the gift puts an employee in a potential conflict of interest, even though there is a policy where employees can accept gifts, then the gifts become ethically incorrect to be accepted. Because one would not be acting in the best interest of the company, and putting oneself in a potential compromised situation with the client and the company. Now what if the client or supplier expects something in return? Let's say something very small, just to bend the rules a little bit, and one has already taken the gift, then one would not be acting in the best interest of the company. And thus this would become ethically wrong to bend the rules for a person when the actual company is paying one to keep the policies and procedures in place. What normally happens with crooked clients, partners or suppliers is that they initially start with small gifts to test the waters with employees, to see how far they would go. So after the first, second, and third gift, the donor of the gift would want you to keep bending the rules more and more, and one would not be acting in the best interest of the company but in the interest of another party. And thus acting unethically. Another situation that could arise would be the mental or emotional state of the client, partner, supplier, or whoever gives the gift. What if the person has a mental illness? Would it be correct to receive something from that person? No, because the person's mental capacity is not stable enough to make a sound decision to give a gift. Especially if the gift is out of proportion. Now if one senses that the client's emotional or mental capacity is such that not accepting the gift from the employee would actually cause more harm to the emotional or mental state of the person, then accepting the gift from the employee is okay, under those circumstances. And just saying thank you to the person is sufficient. Then the employee should take the gift and give it to the manager or his or her supervisor. And explain the situation on hand. It would be ethically correct to take the gift from the person under those circumstances, but one needs to give it to the company. Now if the manager says, you can keep it, then refuse to keep the gift. The manager should investigate the circumstances of the client, partner or supplier, and find out what exactly is happening to that particular person. Once the situation is analyzed and a caretaker, guardian, spouse or partner is located and found, then the manager should explain the situation and give the gift back to them. That would be the ethically correct way to proceed. Now what if one is the owner of the company or business? Can one accept a gift from a client, customer, partner or supplier? The answer to that depends. If there are no conflicts of interest and no mental or emotional capacity involved with the donor, then it is quite acceptable to receive such gifts. It actually becomes an etiquette reason more than an ethical reason. However, there are many professions that have an inherent conflict of interest or where there is a pre-assumed, patient relationship. In conflict of interest situational cases would be lawyer-client relationship, where there may be a conflict of interest. Also any types of agents where the agent is acting on behalf of two parties. Social workers who may have conflict of interest with the state and families. Other cases of patient-client relationship would be doctors and patients, especially where the patient may be mentally or emotionally unstable, or where the patient is in a vulnerable position. Also counselors, when the patient has been a victim of crime. It would be unethically wrong to accept gifts from those situations, because it is not acting in the best interest of the patient. Even though the patient feels very grateful. For employees dealing with clients in moments of celebration, and being given a gift for those special occasions is still not acceptable, in such instances of Christmas, Easter periods or any type of celebration when gifts are given. The occasion makes no differences at all, one should still adhere to the given ethical standards outlined. Now there are certain jobs where clients tip the employee, such as waiters, casino dealers, taxi drivers, bartenders, pizza delivery drivers, room service attendants, golf caddies, and other jobs like that. Should one accept tips from customers? It depends what company policies state. It is up to the company or business to decide the rules for gifts being accepted. If the employer wants to know whether it is ethical or not ethical to allow employees to accept gifts, it depends again. But by following the two concepts of not being in a conflict of interest and viewing the mental and emotional capacity of the customer, one can determine whether it would be advisable to allow employees of that company to accept tips from customers. There are many associational codes of ethics or conduct that prohibits vehemently the acceptance of any gifts from any source. Some associational codes will differ in state and country with their standards. However, by following the above concepts explained, one will always be in good ethical standing, no matter what country, state or locality one is in. In the description notes, there is a link for a brief on business ethics. You're welcome to download it. If you want to be informed of more content when it comes out, you can click the subscription and notification button. If you want a specific topic discussed, you can let me know in the comments below.